And we are getting into the U.S.'s big win, 2-1 over Guatemala in the semifinals of the Gold Cup, booking their ticket to the Gold Cup final, which is very exciting. So where do we want to start, Chuck? Where do we want to go with this? Maybe.
Okay, let's.
How are you feeling? Let's get a temperature check. How are you feeling?
Yeah. Okay, let's start with the positives.
Let's do that.
Let's start with the positives.
Positives. I like that. Positives.
Good way to go. Good way to go.
We're in the final of a Gold Cup. That's a positive.
Diego Luna to start the game.
2 goals. Brace
movement. Okay. I think the Tyler Adams Berhalter pairing worked really well in that first half, breaking up plays. They did most of the work, right? And that's why Tillman we didn't really see too much of. That's where I'm going to leave it right there.
Okay, that's a nice segue.
I'll pass you the rock.
Let's pass the rock. We'll get a little hot potato of positivity to Big Tones. Where are you? Because this is fresh. Game just ended. For everybody listening to this on your podcast platform of choice, we just did a 2-hour-plus watch-along. So we are raw with emotion about this. Giving you the positive. What are your positives in this one, Big Tones?
Yeah, I'll use Charlie's and Charlie's too, and I'm going to add Matt Freese comes up with a big save at the end of the game when we needed it. So I'm going to add that as a third one.
Okay, and then I'll add game management. I wanted to see us evolve in some ways.
Game management as a positive?
Huh?
No, not. I just thought, hey, we had a 2-0 lead and we won the game.
Oh, Jimmy, I'm gonna go the complete opposite end of the spectrum with that. So your feelings nullified, Tony. Tell him. Go on.
Well, listen. What's funny is that I didn't even get to finish my thought before I was rudely interrupted by someone who is dehydrated. I didn't get to finish my thought.
Big red dot. You said team management.
Yeah, but then you jumped in before I could even finish my thought.
Finish this thought. I got to hear this.
Yeah, me too. I'm so curious. Go ahead. Give me your positive spin to team management.
So we started off with a nice lead. We scored early, and then we almost gave the game away at the end. I don't really have anything positive to say other than we got the W and we're in the Gold Cup final.
I almost left my office, Tony. I was literally ready to. He tried to say team management was a positive.
I couldn't.
That was terrible.
No, we didn't manage it well.
It's so disappointing. It is honestly absurd. The substitutions. I'm trying to be calm too, but it is absurd. The substitutions that Mauricio Pochettino made,
and when he made them,
up 2-0. You take off Tyler Adams. That's one. But you're going to bring on John Tolkien and keep Max Arfson in the game? What?
Make it make sense, everybody. Make it make sense. Yeah, so we're a little frustrated. I guess I wanted to hang on to the positives a little bit longer, but it's hard because we're frustrated with how we almost gave that game
the biggest
away.
positive, we won the game, right?
Right.
The final. So that was the first mission, no matter what. And then we go from there, I guess.
Yeah, it's.
Oh my God, I'm cramping.
Yeah. He's cramping right now
because I'm so angry. I'm red. I went to just flex my hammy. It's cramped. Oh
man, thank God we didn't go to extra time, Jimmy, because he would have been done. We had to take him out. Call him a sub.
That's right. It wouldn't have gone to penalties, right? It would have gone to extra time and then pens.
I thought was it the semifinals or the finals only? I thought it was the finals only, but I mean, I don't know. Charlie couldn't have gone. Chuck couldn't have gone extra time. He's done.
No, he couldn't. He
would have.
He couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So let's go line by line then, shall we? And so Matt Freese I thought was good. He made the saves that we needed to make. There are times where, and I know this probably isn't his choice, but there's an ask of him to play short. And then he'll play short to someone, and that person will just hit it long. And I wanted to reiterate this because this frustrates you and me, Tony, in particular, because we used to do this when we played together. But if you're just going to hit it long anyway, then I'd rather the goalkeeper push everybody up, get the 30 or 40 extra yards, and then just knock it long and we can play from there, as opposed to inviting all this unnecessary pressure. If we're just going to hit it long anyway, that frustrates me. So I know that's not necessarily on Matt Freese if that's what's being told to him to do. But there are times where he has the ball in his hands. He can be like, hey, I need to slow the game down. Let's get everybody up and we can play from there. And then if you're going to get some heat from your coach afterwards, then you get a little bit of heat. But that's what you were feeling in that moment. And it feels like Mauricio Pochettino is giving that type of trust to these players. That's all.
So I always looked at it this way. If I didn't see the second pass, then you weren't getting it. Like if I didn't see the pass to you is the easy one, but I need to know that you have a pass to the next guy. If not, I always thought it's coming back to me. So if I thought it was coming back to me, I don't need you. I can do that myself, right? I don't need to see you kick the ball long. I'd rather. So I always looked at the second pass. And if you,
great
you
shot.
know, yeah, if you don't see it, then don't play it because I already knew that most goalies in this day and age, they can do that. They can put the ball long to somebody. So yeah, so there's a little bit of that missing. But again, I think that comes with experience. But you made the save in the end that you needed to make, and a couple balls that he came out. I think 2 or 3 crosses he came out for. So that part positive. What would you say? Just the whole back? We doing the whole back line?
Well,
we're just starting with the goalie.
Yeah, we're gonna start with the goalkeeper, and obviously that's your area of expertise. So I wanted you to dive in there. Matt Freese made the timely save. He made that big one to his right at the end of the game. That's what you need if you want to win anything of consequence. Got to have a goalkeeper making timely saves. So let's talk back line. I thought this was Alex Freeman's best game. He got forward, joined the attack more so in the first half than the second half. Richards and Ream were fine. Richards maybe. I guess you're right. The goal that we gave up, Freeman and Richards could have done something a little bit different to close the ball down. Seemed to be some hesitation as to who is actually going to step to it there. Now, we are arguing that maybe if Tyler Adams is on the field, they wouldn't have had to address that because Tyler would have been in and around that area or sniffing it out because that's what makes him special as a player. I do have an issue with Richards and Ream allowing the line to drop as deep as it did in the last maybe 10 minutes of the game, which just invites cross and hopeful long balls over and over and over again. And then when you win it, we've got nowhere to play out because the lines are collapsed on top of each other. And I think the center backs in particular can control that and get people off of their laps and make sure that we're not dropping deeper just to drop deep. And it invites a lot of unnecessary pressure for me. So that's on them, in my humble opinion, based on how I used to play the position and how I was told when I was coming through the system, that's what you should be doing too. And then Max Arfson gets forward well, but still a liability for me defensively. Chuck, any thoughts on the back line?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Max Arfson. We've talked about it constantly, right? The art of defending at the international level is different. You have to close players down. You have to take the right angles. You have to have this mentality of I'm willing to fight. I'm gonna tooth the nail. I'm not gonna give you anything. And you're not getting that from him. And on top of that, it's a lack of awareness on crosses. When the ball's on one side, not paying attention to the players off your shoulder, that's curtains. That's game over. And so we keep talking about, okay, we're going to see a little bit more from him. But he drops off, and there's a sense of fear when he's defending that if I step, I'm going to get toast. So I need to drop back and maybe delay him, and I'll have somebody come and help. That's an issue. So for me, Max Arfson, again, is having a tough time at this level, playing left back.
Okay.
Tim Ream and Richards, I think for Ream, we saw at times where we always fear, and that's the lack of place when teams play in behind. And Chris Richards, I think, has made so much improvement over the past year, but he still doesn't have that pace to make up for a center back with a deficient amount of pace, right? And then Freeman, I'm going to go with Tony. This is his best game in a high pressure semifinal. Of course, he made some mistakes, but he involved in the first game. He got a lot higher. You felt more freedom from him in this game. He didn't feel like he was restricted as much. So that's where I'm going to go with my back four analysis.
Okay, so let's get into the midfield then. Tony, I'm going to come to you. So you have Tyler Adams. I think we were surprised that he got subbed off. He was not the player I thought was looking leggy out of the midfield. I thought Tillman was looking a little bit tired and probably deserved to have that. And you can keep Tyler on to kind of close out the game. So a bit of a surprise of a sub. We'll get into Mauricio Pochettino and his decisions a little bit later. But just in terms of how the players performed, you had Adams, you had De La Torre, and you had Sebastian Berhalter in midfield. How did you feel about those guys tonight?
De La Torre I needed more from, but although he grew into the second half a little bit when it started and then it fell off again. Sebastian Berhalter, I'm seeing some comments here. I'm looking at the numbers, and the numbers bear out to be a really good game. 27 of 32 passes. 4 of the passes that were apparently lost came from crosses. And I don't know if that means restart crosses or that means crosses in the run of play. So just I'll leave that one where it is. Won 6 of 12 ground duels as well. And he had 13 positive defensive actions in the game. So I don't know if that bears out to be a bad game like some people think. I thought he was pretty good in this match, pretty steady. I do want to know, though, what his role was, because as much as we talk about him being next to Adams, he was a little higher up the field tonight. And do we have a chance to get that heat map again, or that do we still have that?
See if we can find the heat map.
If we can find
the passing map.
The passing map. Yeah, if we can look for it by the end of the show, we didn't have to. I know I'm throwing you guys on the spot right now, but I'd really be interested to see where the majority of his actions were. Tyler was clearly a little bit deeper. I will caution this with the Tyler substitution. We don't know what the number said, like where he was, and if they thought like he was worn out. I thought Tillman, like you, Jimmy, was more worn out than Tyler Adams.
Yeah.
But we don't know the numbers until we see him, and that's something we might hear in the post game. Because someone's going to ask about Tyler Adams. There's no way nobody's going to ask about Tyler Adams.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because taking away his ability on the field, there's the intangibles, Chuck, right? And he was your player to watch before the game kicked off. He brings presence. He's a leader, right? He puts people in good spots to make plays. And then all of a sudden you take him off the field and there's a void of that. And now you're asking Sebastian Berhalter. And now Jack McGlynn comes into the, and everybody's just under pressure and we're dropping deeper. And you need guys with experience. Obviously, Tyler's one of the most experienced players we have in this particular group of players to solve problems. And when you take him off, I thought that was to the detriment of the team overall. And maybe we'll get some more information afterwards in fairness to the decisions that were being made. But still frankly pretty surprised. All right, let's get to the attacking players. And we have Malik Tillman, Diego Luna, and Patrick Agyemang. And I don't know where you want to start, but we did put up a poll here on the Gloss America YouTube channel about which of the starters from the semifinal should not start in the final itself. And Patrick Agyemang was the big winner with 54%, saying that Damian Downs should get the start over him. He does some good things, but then it seems like for everything that good that he does, there's another player or two that detracts from the positive stuff that he'd done. And kind of a mixed bag of a performance from Agyemang today. If you want to start there, Chuck.
Yeah, let's start with Agyemang. There are a number of positives to his play. But when we're talking about a number 9 in this system, we're talking about creating goals and scoring goals. And that department today really lacked efficiency. We saw the one time where he got around the right center back, got into a good position, and tried to go low far post, where you got to lift that or you got to cut back because you know that the second defender is sliding in. So when we talk about Patrick Agyemang, has he improved with his hold-up play? I think so. Has he improved with his first touch? I think so. But the passing has been off. The weight of the pass, it's too far behind. It's not hit enough with enough force. And then we're talking about the finishing part, the aspect that really matters as a number 9. It's if you aren't scoring, you got to do all those other things and still make a big impact. I think he makes an impact, which I think that's why Pochettino likes playing him, because he's a handful to deal with, but it's not clean. It's not clean enough where the U.S. can go, okay, we can rely on you because you open up the game and he's a good passer. So I would like to say, okay, I'd love to see Tillman, but we all know Pochettino's not changing the team. He's not changing Agyemang at this stage in the final if he's gone with them the whole way through.
Guatemala, good account of themselves. They should be really proud. They had a fantastic tournament and just fell a little bit short. But I would be pretty surprised if they don't make this expanded World Cup next summer. So I'm pulling for Guatemala to make that happen because they have a lot of good storylines, and that would be the first time they've ever qualified for a World Cup, which would be a very big deal. So let's make that happen. I was really impressed with how they performed. All right, so we talked about Patrick Agyemang with our resident number 9, Charlie Davies. Now, Big Tones, I want you to have a crack at Tillman and Diego Luna and how you thought they performed overall. Now it's interesting because Tillman's been our best attacking player consistently throughout this tournament. I thought he was quiet today based on the standards that he's set. Okay, he looked a little tired at the end of the game too. And then you had Diego Luna, who had 2 goals, but I saw a lot of turnovers from him today too, which we need him and Tillman to get on the ball. They're our most creative players to help us dictate the tempo and the flow. And that's when the game's the hardest, when we're playing against potentially Mexico in the final. We're taking on a Switzerland or Turkey in the friendlies, or Korea and Japan in September.
I don't think he had a lot of turnovers, by the way.
Luna?
Yeah, a lot?
Okay, maybe a lot. That feels
26 for 32 tonight is passing.
So he had 6 turnovers.
41 touches. But he's an attacking player
No,
and
of course.
third,
I want to give him room to take chances and take risks. But there were a couple moments. I guess I'm thinking about 2 or 3 plays, Chuck, where he had a chance to get us out of some pressure and he missed the pass. And that's kind of the areas where I want us to be as tight and efficient as possible. So maybe I'm holding him up to a higher standard than I should. I know it's goddamn hot in July in St. Louis. So
but he was good.
He was a baller. He's a baller. And he scored 2 goals. I don't want to take anything away from that. He scored 2 very good goals. And he's building off of the confidence that he had in scoring his first ever goal for the U.S. against Costa Rica. But I'm not mad about asking him more. I'm not regretting about asking him more and continuing to push his standard. But
you are a Luna hater. I got to give you that.
Okay, yeah. I was the first number 1 Luna.
Yeah, sure.
Luna lover.
Hey, Tony, he's like, oh well, Luna lost the ball all the time.
Okay, we go.
He barely had a shot on goal.
All right, here we go. Anyway, sorry, Big Tones. I took your airtime, but it's your turn.
Who'd you say, Luna and Tillman? Yeah, let's do Luna, right? First up, for me, anyone who scores 2 goals in the game is hard for me to knock, right? You're an attacking player. My expectation is if you're going to be brave and be an attacking player, you're going to lose the ball, right? At some point. You're going to go, but as long as you're putting people under pressure, for me, it's fine. I have no problem. That's for me, first and foremost. So I'll give, I don't know. I hate the grades, but positive game for Diego Luna for sure. Yes. And his attitude is incredible. The way he plays, he never stops until the coach takes him out of the game. Right. So give him that. Tillman was a little bit quieter game, but then I'm thinking to myself, if I'm Guatemala and I'm looking at the last game, I'm like, there's one guy I need to stop on the U.S. I need to build things around stopping Malik Tillman. And I need to build things about not allowing him to get rhythm. I know already he got kicked 5 or 6 times in the last game, so I'm going to go and kick him. I think he took 2 or 3 pretty good hits today, right? Just think you guys went through, the school recently, so your mind's thinking that way. If the U.S. is going to make the game, if I'm Guatemala, and I'm thinking the U.S. is going to make the game, who's going to make it for them? It's going to be Tillman, right? So I need to do everything I can to stop the guy that's going to make the game and make somebody else make the game. Tonight it was Diego Luna. But I don't think Tillman was bad in the game. He had moments where he got out of pressure. He just didn't have a lot of moments, is what I would say.
Yeah. And we should take that into consideration for sure, where because of his success throughout the tournament, they were going to key on him a little bit, and he's going to have to find spaces or pockets of space in different ways. All right, let's take a look at that passing map. We have it uploaded and ready to go with regard to where we were creating our space, where kind of our starting positions were based on our map.
Look at Berhalter. See, to me, this reeks of like he's playing in a different position and not next to Tyler Adams.
Yeah, he's almost playing like an 8, right?
He is playing as an 8. He is playing as an 8.
Yeah.
But I'll say the same thing. Look at Luca De La Torre.
Yeah.
Way high up the field. And really,
remember, he was your 10, right? He was supposed to be your 10 in the game, right?
Yeah.
So he should be higher.
I think Tillman was really, for me, supposed to be the 10. He was central, but like you both pointed out, he was dropping deep because they were trying to take him out of the game. So he was trying to create more space for himself by checking in, but that ended up taking him out of the game, which gave Diego Luna more space, and it gave Ajiman more space, but Ajiman couldn't profit from it, right? He just couldn't figure out a way. I think he really needs to work on the timing of his runs. And I go back to watching him live with the U.S. men's national team in Hartford against Turkey A. And I thought to myself, man, there are a lot of times where Turkey A left him one-on-one. And they left him one-on-one with outside backs. But he didn't take the initiative to make the run into the space.
Right.
He thought, I'm just going to post up. That's when you got to drag your guy out and then make that arching run into the channel. There the ball goes, and you're off to the races. So I really think he needs to work on his movement, one, but the timing of his movement, taking advantage of those vacancies when a team like Guatemala is pushing numbers forward. It's perfect for you instead of staying put and trying to be like a big tower who's going to hold off one or two center backs. His strength is not that. His strength is not building with, when we build out of the back and they play to the striker and he's trying to link play and play through the lines. That's not his game. His game is over the top or run into the channel and get on to the end of things and being and causing havoc. And then you gotta make the most of your chances. So I think there's a lot of fine tuning that needs to happen. And because of that, would we like to see Damian Downs get an opportunity from the start? I saw in the comments, hey, Patrick Ajiman's not starting in the World Cup. Especially, let's take into consideration, Balogun's healthy and he's playing at Monaco. Pepe gets back and he's playing, right? Ajiman's not starting. So best case scenario, he comes off the bench. And what I was saying, he could be like a Wout Weghorst for that type of version. Coming on, different type of player, different profile. Nothing about him graceful, but just running and cause havoc. You're a big body. He could be that. And it could be a great addition to an attack that needs some support. But in terms of starting and running at guys and beating guys and being the starter, and that I think it's too short of a time to develop those qualities to the level you need him to be at to really thrive in a World Cup.
Yeah, for everybody that's just listening, we threw up a passing map, and what was surprising was that Berhalter was a little bit higher up the field than Tyler Adams, even though they look like on paper they'll be next to each other. Luca De La Torre was much higher than Tillman, which was interesting. And I think for the first time throughout the Gold Cup, you had Freeman and Arfsten almost equal. I think in the other games, Arfsten was a little bit higher up the field and picking up the ball higher up the field. So a couple notes that we noticed from that passing map in particular. All right. We talked about it. Let's bring it up now. Big Tones, Mauricio Pochettino. Let's evaluate him. Let's start with the starting 11 because he made no changes from the Costa Rica game. Were you surprised by that, especially now when at the end of this game again we see guys that look a little bit tired? They've logged a lot of minutes so far. Tones is muted.
Oh God, Tones!
We love it. Tones.
I did it on purpose this time.
Yeah.
Just to see your
shout out to Tones in the chat for the muting.
Yeah, look, we were surprised. We said though, it wasn't like we said in the last show there was going to be multiple changes. You and I said one or two, right?
Yeah,
that's what we said in the last game. So it wasn't the surprise is not necessarily the start. I'm trying to figure out while you guys were talking this substitution pattern. Like if I have it right, and I'm gonna have to go map it out because it's not easy on the run, but I think we played 3 different formations in this game, and I just don't know. I know they work on things, and they probably, at a minimum, talked about all of the responsibilities because there's not at this point you're not training a ton, right? But that's a tough ask, man, to do.
Go back to Pochettino's first substitution in Nations League. We're losing.
Which was the McGlynn one you're talking about?
We're struggling to break down Panama. They're in a low block. We need players who can get wide and cause mismatches because that's where you get them in the wide areas. They all got super tight and narrow, made it difficult to play. He took off Tessman to put on.
It was Tessman, yeah.
McGlynn.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What are you giving the team in that position?
So what you're saying, Chuck, is that there's a history of poor substitutions under Mauricio Pochettino.
Yes, I am saying that. Which 100%. You can't tell me.
Has become more apparent than ever.
You cannot tell me that there's not an issue right now with the timing of the substitutions and the players that are being substituted and the players that are going in for the substitutions. I'll go back to tonight. It is a mind-blowing substitution to take off Tyler Adams.
It's unbelievable.
When you were up 2-0. I know Tyler missed.
There better be a reason for that.
I know Tyler missed a couple passes to Berhalter.
Yeah, whatever.
They didn't communicate. Whatever.
Fine.
But I'm telling you, as a defensive midfielder primarily, who closes down space in a short amount of time, Andy SVTA, he's gassed. Who wasn't gassed? We're talking about protecting a lead. I don't care if you're gassed. You think these guys aren't going to be gassed in a World Cup? Come on, that's gassed. Don't give me that. We're in the Gold Cup semifinals. Don't give me no gassed as a reason you're going to take out Tyler Adams. Oh, that one.
Mind-blowing.
I'm not going to sit well with it. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight because I'm going to be thinking about how could you take off Tyler Adams? Unless Tyler Adams looked at you and said, Coach, I need a sub. You can't take him off. You can't. And then on top of that, you're going to put in Tolkien for Tyler Adams?
Yes, yeah.
That's your substitution?
Come on. It's funny. This might be the first time Mauricio Pochettino has triggered Chuck Big Tones. I mean, I don't know if we'd seen it before, but now
we got some others. Oh, Tyler is on a yellow card. That's why we're gonna sub him. He was looking reckless.
No, you can't.
No, that's not.
It doesn't carry over to the final anyway.
Oh,
yeah, no. You it's your leader. He knows.
But I think he's talking more about getting a red card, not that it turns.
Okay.
I'm guessing he's talking about. But he
go what?
Yeah, he's got to manage that. But he can. He's not like Tyler Adams hadn't been on a yellow card before. I can tell you that.
I think what's interesting is that we made in the 77th minute we made 2 subs. Tolkien
I'm
came
looking
on
at
for
him,
Diego
Jim.
Luna.
I don't get.
And Jack McGlynn comes on for Tyler Adams. And 3 minutes later, we give up a goal. I don't think that's a coincidence. Those are just not good subs. I don't.
But
you said during the game,
it's not. Of course, it's not a coincidence.
But here's my thing. Here's the Jack McGlynn. Forget the Adams part right now. Jack McGlynn. We've been saying forever, right, that his best position is actually where Tyler Adams plays, right? So if you told me you made this like for whatever, Adams is tired, whatever the reason is, you didn't put him there. You still didn't put him there. He didn't play in that part of the field. Right? Like I'm looking at it and I just can't. I'm tomorrow morning when I wake up, I'm going to go map out like everyone and how the formation changed and all that stuff. And it's going to be difficult, man.
Tell me this. My meniscus hurt. We got some trolls in here. He said, we rate Tyler Adams too high.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
It's like, come on, guys.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
Let's be real.
Yeah. I'm good with that.
Yeah, it's so there's I don't know how it depends on how you're defining how you rate someone. I mean, Tyler Adams brings presence, he brings leadership, he brings direction, he problem solver, right? You're asking sometimes some younger players but don't have the same amount of experience to worry about something more than themselves. Tyler's played enough where he can worry about the big picture. He can make sure he can sit. And let's be honest, as center backs, you get comfortable with players that how they're creating space, how they're blocking passing lanes, all this type of stuff. When you take that player out and then bring on John Tolkien to fill that role, or you move in Sebastian Berhalter to a different spot and he's got to drop deeper, it's just not the same. And now you're asking these guys to react in the same way behind them, that back line behind them, when they're used to that guy in front of them that was doing certain things. Yes, these guys are playing at the highest level. They should be able to adapt quickly. I get all that. However, in the middle of a game, you want to make that as seamless of a transition as possible. And Mauricio Pochettino did his team 0 favors by putting McGlynn and Tolkien on for Luna and Tyler Adams. I agree with you. It defies logic, and hopefully there's some people in the press conference that are going to ask him these questions, and hopefully we'll get Paul Tenorio on afterwards so we can hear what some of those answers were. But yeah, I just don't get it. And then he made a correction, Chuck. Remember you were saying during the watch-along that now he makes the substitution. Damian Downs comes in for Adjiman, who clearly looked tired. And then he brings on Zimmerman to just lock it down, right? You had a lead, bring on a center back. You could have been McKenzie, could have been Zimmerman. Just bring on something that's more defensive-minded than leaving Max Arston at left back as opposed to having John Tolkien. It's crazy. I don't understand it.
Tell me this. Yeah. Both of you guys. You guys obviously have your defensive hats on, right? Defensive-minded hats.
Always.
You're up 2-0. You're going to take off your defensive midfielder? Or are you going to take off an attacking midfielder like Malik Tillman, who is gassed? You talk about gassed? He's much more gassed than Tyler Adams.
Gassed.
You keep him on.
Yes.
You keep your striker on, who's gassed as hell too. For me, these substitutions are just so puzzling because they don't make sense, and they got punished for them. And then you go, panic mode. Walker Zimmerman, get on in there. You know? I'm telling you right now.
By the way, Walker was in there for one reason, to win headers. If balls pumped in the box, he won the one header that he had to win in the box, right? So he was there for one reason.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm assuming that
really
people are going to ask these questions, right? I'm assuming they're going to ask these questions, and we're going to find out more.
Yeah, we are. We still got the win, so there's still lots of positives there. Or at least that's the one positive we could take out of this. And the brace from Diego Luna.
Yeah,
Diego Luna's brace. Hey, his second goal was so well taken, and the setup to the first goal was great. He had switched point of attack and finished it off. And so we have evaluated everyone on the team, including head coach Mauricio Pochettino. And so there's been some chatter around the grit of this team and maybe the lack of grit from our quote-unquote A squad. And what are we seeing grit-wise, Chuck? Are you seeing it? Are you seeing the grit from this team? Are you seeing enough of it? For me, that kind of bleeds in at times into managing games.
I mean,
and even though I said there's some positives there, with like they still found a way to get a result.
Yeah.
Okay, it might not always be pretty, but they still found a way to get a result. There's different layers of grit, I should say, if we want to slice it that way. But what are you thinking about the mentality and the grit of this team?
Well, they're in a final, so you can't get to a final without grit and mentality. I think Saudi Arabia was a good test because they played with grit. They were defensive. I think Haiti was a great test, a surprising test. Trinidad was obviously the outlier because that was the worst Trinidad team I've seen in my lifetime. They were terrible.
Yeah, they were
good. But then I'd say the Saudi Arabia match was a great test. They were tough. They were trying to make it really difficult, slowing the play down, delaying, low blocks, counter. Something I don't think maybe the U.S. necessarily thought they would do, especially given their first game. And then the Haitians, they came to play. They were surprisingly really good, but they got the job done. They won. Guatemala, for me, is a really interesting. Costa Rica. I'll go to Costa Rica first. Costa Rica, that's a team that comes with grit. So they matched the grit to win that game. Was it pretty? No, I wouldn't say any of these matches were necessarily pretty. At times, like you said, we saw some good intricate passing plays and good movement and creating chances. But they finally they finally, I think, understood how to get results, which is a great thing. They're in the final. We always talk about if they play pretty and they're not in the final, they lose the
what
quarters.
Does that mean? What does that mean?
Right?
Yeah.
Do we go, but
right.
They're in the final. I don't think anyone expected them to get in the final, to be honest. I don't think any of us thought they were getting the final, right? But they're in a final, and now they're waiting for Mexico-Honduras. If Honduras upsets this Mexican side, damn. But even if they don't, then we're really going to get a test. We're really going to see what these guys are made of. Where are they at? Well, how is Pochettino going to deal with the pressure of being in a final against Mexico? I think we're going to learn a whole lot more than what we've already learned up until this point.
Yeah, I think what's interesting to add to that, to piggyback off of that, is that when we played Turkey and Switzerland, that felt pretty early on in this, let's say, cycle of the group that he brought in. Now you've had a month with these guys. And I really hope we face Mexico. They've been the best team for me so far in the tournament, with all due respect to Honduras, who are going to have Guatemala/Costa Rica vibes, going to make it difficult to play against. And we've already faced a couple of those opponents. Mexico is going to be a much, much different challenge. And so I hope we get a crack at them for a lot of different reasons, but mainly because they're the best team in the tournament. And I want to see how these players do. And I want to see how Mauricio Pochettino manages this. Are we making the right subs? Are our tactics looking okay? Are all that type of stuff too, that gets thrown into the equation. So I do hope that we get Mexico, but yeah, I'm curious as to how this group is going to respond with a couple days rest, taking on hopefully a good opponent. And I'm getting ahead of myself because that game kicks off later. But Tones, like, where are you on the grit and determination?
Yeah, no doubt, grit and determination. I wrote this down at the bottom of my around halftime. I said, has the lack of rotation caught up with us for this tournament? Right? Because we gave up 20 shots to a Guatemalan side. and I don't want to. For me, sometimes you got to. You said it, Chuck. You got to win ugly. This is perfect. We're in a final. They did their job. I just wonder, like, if it's all of the we've come here for like 4 games in a row and have said, man, I can't believe we didn't make any changes. Basically, right? There's been a couple along the way, but basically we've not been a team that's rotated, right, in this thing. And today in the second half, there's reason to have concern that guys got really tired in the semifinals, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it looked like that. Yeah, we had a lot of guys that looked leggy. Even in the Costa Rica game, you could start to see it shift. We made it 2-1, and then remember we were all waiting, like, when is he going to make a sub? Like, when is he going to help out the player? I get trusting the guys that are on the field, and I have a lot of respect for that mentality. But also, like a timely sub, I think it has to anticipate what's coming before it comes, right? And that's what the best ones do. That in-game management isn't just isolated to the players; it's also the manager making sure that the guys are as fresh and as organized as possible.
But Jim and Chuck, for me, the subs are different than the rotation, because the guys that are playing and starting all the time, like, they're the ones being the most taxed. And then there's a different argument about subs. Which ones do you take off, and who was tired, all of that stuff. And that's like a different argument for me. I'm just wondering if just basically, I'm just sifting through all the lineups I wrote, and we basically made hardly any. The third game, right, is the game that we made the changes. I think we made 4 changes in the third game. Yeah. So we've basically not changed. Like, you're taxing guys in the majority of the minutes and taxing a lot of guys, where along the way, like, if you gave 2 guys a rest for one game, and then 2 more guys a rest for another game, and another 2 guys didn't, you know what I mean? And you spread out the break, maybe you're in a different position at the end of the game where your guys don't look exhausted. And again, there'll be case studies about, all this stuff like they always do during these tournaments. And I wonder if that shows up somewhere.
All right. Yeah, that's a big question. And I'm hopeful that we can hold off that tiredness and legginess for after the final. Okay, so we have a very special guest with us. He joined us in game for the watch along. He just got back from the press conference, post-game press conference.
Ooh, I want to hear this.
It's the Athletics' Paul Tenorio, who's joining us live from Energizer Park in St. Louis. Hey, Paul, what's up? Thank you for coming back and hanging out with us.
Paul might not be with us just yet, but yeah, no, I'm interested to see, Jimmy, what happens here in this post-game. I assume Tyler Adams' question came up because even if you didn't question the sub, somebody's going to ask, was Tyler injured, right? Because that's been a little bit of a concern, right? And I hope that's certainly hope that's not the case.
Well, yeah, because we want there to be a reason as to why he got subbed out. Otherwise, Chuck's going to continue to get triggered every time he thinks about taking off one of our best players with 10 minutes left in a meaningful game. And so Paul Tenorio will be joining us here in a second, just getting his audio connected as he deals with might be Chuck's type of Wi-Fi. I don't know. We'll have to see how it's going at Energizer Park.
Tony's Wi-Fi.
No, man, you guys, I don't understand what happened. I saw you guys. You're going, Tony's gone. Tony's gone. Oh, his Wi-Fi quit. Literally, I'm listening to every word you're saying, and I'm like, well, why am I not on the screen? I saw you, Chuck. Don't worry. I had you. I saw you red.
Okay, so one part of the conversation I want to have, and we can interrupt it once Paul joins us, and we can come back to it afterwards.
Come on, Paul. Let's go.
Well, it's every 4 years when the World Cup comes around, it's a huge opportunity to convert casual fans into more meaningful fans of the beautiful game, especially for the sport in this country, right? So they can support local teams, MLS, USL, NWSL, whatever it is, right? So it can help continue to lift the sport here. And I feel like there's an expectation when they see score lines, like we're not beating Guatemala easily, and I know we've had the discussion before about CONCACAF this and CONCACAF that, but anyway, we're going to get back into it because we got Paul Tenorio joining us right now, live from Energizer Park in St. Louis. Paul, are you there? There he is.
I'm here. Had some audio difficulties. Had to switch things up.
He's in a storage facility.
I'm in the loading dock waiting for the mix zone to get going. So a really interesting press conference, guys, from Mauricio Pochettino.
Oh boy.
I think a lot of his commentary was centered around the atmosphere tonight. And he was talking about the culture of the Guatemalan fans and the team and how much it meant for them, how much it meant for the fans, and that's the kind of culture that he wants to try to help create in the U.S. this kind of, that it's, as he said, kind of more than a sport, that it's more that when you lose where he's from in Argentina, when you lose a game, there's huge consequences, and that, he wants to see that kind of mentality and that attitude where, he mentioned seeing Guatemalan players crying after the game, and that is what he wants to see more of. And he believes that this team, that this Gold Cup is starting to find that they understand what it takes to gut out those wins, to push themselves to the limit, that playing in an atmosphere like this where you have to survive through kind of the pressure and all of that. So I thought that part of it was interesting. I also felt like, he was asked a question specifically about the substitutions of Tolkien and McGlynn. And, he felt like they made sense, that he was putting an extra fullback onto the field as a winger, a guy who had played as a wing back and as a fullback at the club level. He was putting McGlynn in as a third midfielder. I felt like those substitutions didn't make as much sense, especially in the moment with McGlynn, where you're much more defensive oriented and a player who doesn't love to defend.
Paul, I got to stop you here because I'm bursting at the seam. Listen to me.
We got him.
The thoughts of a foreign coach coming to this country in 2025 and blaming the spectators or the audience for giving another team motivation in our country is mind-blowing to me. Because listen, it's so disrespectful to players like Tony Meola when no one in this country watched the game. It wasn't on TV. I didn't get to see a game until the World Cup. 1994 was the first time I got to watch soccer on TV in this country. And the blood, sweat, and tears that this guy had to put in to establish the game in this country, really in 1990 to get to World Cup, but 1994 to take this game to the next level, to create a league in this country when no one watched, and for him to go talk about the fans, that pisses me off. That pisses me off.
It feels like a deflection.
What do you think all American players who have represented our country for all these years, what do you think we fought for? To play the game, to get coverage. You think we want to play in stadiums in our home cities that are predominantly favoring the other team? Hell no.
We got to get Mauricio Pochettino.
No.
We got to get him on the. We got to get him on the show.
No, I think, but you've got to remember that this is a new experience for him, right? Yeah, and he was praising the Guatemalan fans more than he was criticizing
the El Salvador fans in DC. I'm praising Mexican fans when they play us in LA and Texas. I don't want to hear that BS. I want to hear that. You know what, guys? Guatemala, we should have taken care of business. We're up 2-0. We took our foot off the pedal. We dropped too deep. We gave them respect. And you know what? I got the subs wrong. I thought it was a good idea. It wasn't a good idea. And that's why he had to put on a center back and take
deflecting. He's deflecting.
Max Arfson. It was poorly managed. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And I think also, the one other thing that there was an acknowledgement of was at the end of the day, at 2-0 down, you need to finish your chances. And that didn't happen. But part of the reason was, and I agree with you, Chuck, I felt like they did not, there's two ways to kill off a game. And they went into a defensive posture, a more conservative posture, rather than holding the ball, making Guatemala chase, trying to kill off the game that way, create more opportunities on the front foot. I thought that they were much too conservative against the Guatemala team that, you can give respect. And it was an awesome atmosphere for them. They're 106th ranked in the world. And, while this isn't the A squad of the U.S., it doesn't matter. You saw in the first 15, 20 minutes that if you push the game forward, you get more aggressive, that you can create goals and score goals. Should Ajamong have finished a chance? Yes. But I agree, the mentality in the second half disappointed me. And by the way, they do that in the final. If it's against Mexico, it's going to be more problematic than it was tonight against Guatemala. I thought a surprising end to the second half. And I did think it was a very interesting press conference because it did kind of warp more into a conversation about culture and the sport at large, rather than it was necessarily about the U.S. The exception would be kind of talking a bit about Diego Luna and kind of this group's growth. But overall, it wasn't there wasn't much of an acknowledgement of he didn't see it as a negative that they were surviving at the end of the game. Is basically kind of how I felt.
Paul, Tony, Jimmy, tell me if I'm wrong. In 2025, if you're a coach coming to coach in this country for the U.S. men's national team, you should know by now that when you play certain opponents, given America and how many different countries have come to this country, have immigrated to this country, and the pockets that we have, that if you play Mexico in LA, in Texas, guess what? It's going to be 85% Mexican. If you play El Salvador or Honduras in DC, guess what? It's going to be at least 50%. At least, most likely more of the other team. So why are we discussing that now? This is not a secret. Every coach knows this. So Tony,
he's deflecting.
I listened to. I want Mauricio Pochettino to make sure he fixes our national team rather than the culture at our national team games. That period. I want that. I didn't bring him here to fix the culture and the melting pot that America is and talk about the thing that's been going on forever. And quite honestly, Paul, I don't think is ever going to change. Ever, no matter what. Yeah. I think we're gonna grow more fans for U.S. men's national team games, but I don't think that's gonna change. So that aside, for you, outside of Diego Luna, because I think he's the obvious one, right? Who played well for you tonight?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. I felt like, you know what, I thought the central midfielders were solid for most of the game. Like I thought Sebastian Berhalter, Tyler Adams, played fine, didn't make mistakes. The U.S. wasn't very aggressive overall when they had the ball, so there weren't too many moments where I was like, I'm surprised that they're not pushing this game forward. It was, I thought the end of the first half they were kind of in good control, so I was okay with the way the midfield played. I want to see more out of a lot of different players. Like I said this during the game, I still feel this way after the way the second half went. Like Ajamang needs to finish chances. If you're going to keep putting him out there, starting him, like I was begging for Damian Downs at the end of the game. Put somebody else on to show me what they're capable of doing. Matt Freese, like I thought there were some shaky moments from him today again. Like I'm not fully convinced even after the penalty heroics. I really thought, this was the first game that I thought maybe Alex Freeman was starting to get a little bit more involved in the attacking phases. I want way more of that. Like, I want way more of seeing him getting involved when he pushes higher up the field. The U.S. is in a far better spot than when the field tilts to the left side, I thought. So, overall, I thought Diego Luna obviously had the best game. The midfield kind of was fine. The center backs as well. They were clean, simple. But, I thought for me, like this performance, this win could have been more convincing had the approach been different, especially in the second half. Just far too conservative for me.
Paul, we appreciate your time. We know you're in the middle of doing pressers in the mix zone. Make sure you check him out on The Athletic. Paul Tenorio, thank you so much. Hopefully you'll be back with us for the final. All right, that's it. We are calling it a show. Here's a fun fact, though. We're coming back at you. Okay, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern, live here on the Glosso America YouTube channel, and it should be a lot of fun. We're still going to have a lot of raw emotion. Hopefully, Charlie finds some AC and get some water, get some food.
No, good thing I'm not on that one.